Thank you for joining us for the second plenary of the Goodstock Conference. As I'm sure you all know by now, the full name of this conference, Goodstock, being good is a state of mind, and the mind is what we will zero in on in the next session. How do we keep our mind focused on our goal despite hard setbacks and challenges? Joining me in the studio are some inspirational individuals who overcame great hurdles. Arik Ze'evi, four-time judo European champion and Olympic bronze medalist who had a long and illustrious career, but also experienced great disappointments through it all. And in New York, Nicola Mitchell, founder of Girls Who Brunch, a nonprofit that helps at-risk youth and enables young girls to succeed. Hi guys, thank you for being with us.
Hello.
Hi Arik, hi Nicola.
Greetings.
So before we begin, I would like to ask you both to introduce yourself. I'm sure many of our viewers know you both very well, but for those who are less familiar with your work, Nicola, why don't you go first?
Hi, my name is Nicola Mitchell. I am the founder of Girls Who Brunch Tour. I am a best-selling writer. I have done so many things. I've written 17 books. And during that process, I came across these girls in Charleston, South Carolina that motivated me to start Girls Who Brunch Tour. As of date, we've serviced 24,000 girls nationwide.
Wow, that's amazing. 24,000 girls throughout the years. That's amazing. Really inspirational. And what do you do with the Girls Who Brunch? What do they do?
Okay, so we sponsor 50 to 100 girls who are from not so great circumstances, girls rescued from the sex trade, girls in group home, girls in foster care, and we put them with girls from a normal circumstance and just subliminally let them teach them while we're letting them have a good time. We're doing a Girls Empowerment Conference. We have panels, workshops, performances, and we have just opportunities for the girls to be able to speak, tell what they're going through, and then we bring the who's who of that community to them, in front of them, to help them to inspire and empower them.
Beautiful. Thank you, Nicola. And Arik, how does a kid from the ultra-religious city of Bnei Brak become one of the top judokas in the world?
Actually, I started training in a very bad neighborhood. It's called Pardes Katz.
I know this neighborhood.
Yeah, it's a very bad one. I started training in the shelter in the community center in Pardes Katz. The only reason I started judo was because the coach was my neighbor. So my elder brother started training before me, and I was following them like any young brother. It's like the sports in Israel, it was very coincidental. Mm-hmm. If my neighbor was a karate coach, so I was doing karate. Karate is not an Olympic sport, so I wouldn't be an Olympic athlete. And actually, in my nonprofit, I'm trying to change this thing in the Israeli sport.
And what do you do in your nonprofit?
I'm trying to change the Israeli sport. I don't know if you know, Israel is ranked number 89 in Olympic achievements.
Wow.
A country with the same population as Israel, like Bulgaria has 217, Finland has 303, even the tiny Liechtenstein has 10 Olympic medals. We have only 9 Olympic medals. And there's nothing wrong with the Israeli mentality, otherwise we won't be so successful in other fields. And there's nothing wrong with the Jewish gene. I checked it out.
That's what I wanted to ask.
There are more than 700 Olympic medals gained by Jews. Mm-hmm. Mark Spritz, for example, gained
Just not from Israel, you're saying?
Just not from Israel, because there is a very big problem in the Israeli sports. All the sports is running by private clubs, and the coaches are getting paid according to the number of athletes, not according to achievements. And we will talk about it. Many problems in the Israeli sport, and I'm trying to change it.
Right. And what were the hurdles you faced, and how did you overcome them?
First of all, I think in Israel, for example, you could be the next Michael Phelps if you're not living next to a swimming pool, so you won't even know that you have a talent in swimming. So the thing I'm trying to do is, first of all, to scout the talented kids. I'm going to elementary schools. I'm scouting the talented kids. By the way, 80% from the kids that I scouted, from the girls that I scouted, didn't do sport before I came to the schools. I don't like to say it, but girls in Israel are not doing sports. They're going to ballet dancing, or they're doing maybe rhythmic gymnastics, but they're not going to sports. So first of all, I'm scouting there. Second of all, I'm giving them the opportunity to train in 3 different sports with the best coaches in Israel. And afterwards, I'm navigating them to the right sports. I think this is the most important part because Michael Phelps, for example, if he would be a basketball player, it wouldn't be Michael Phelps. Or Michael Jordan, if he was a swimmer, it won't be Michael Jordan. So first of all, kids need to find his talent and then try to fulfill his potential. And that is what I'm trying to say. I'm mainly focusing in very bad neighborhoods because I think also sports is the best way to reduce the gap. Because I grew up in Pardescat, so I know. You know, my elder brother, for example, are both working in the high-tech industry. They're both electric engineer.
Yeah.
So they reduce the gap through education, and I'm trying to do it through sport.
Thank you, Ari. Nicola, I think Alik and you come from really different backgrounds, but at the same time, I'm sure you have many in common, many things in common. Can you tell us about the challenges you went through while starting Girls Who Brunch?
So our backgrounds are really not that different. I'm originally from Jamaica, and I moved to Las Vegas when I was fairly young, and I moved to a very poor neighborhood. And being an immigrant, coming to a predominantly Black neighborhood that really wasn't familiar with Caribbean culture, I was isolated, right? And I was raped multiple times before I turned 16. The first time I was raped was in church by my choir director.
Wow.
And during that time, I thought something was wrong with me because things just kept happening. So I joined this organization in high school. It's called Upward Bound. And at first they told me I wasn't going to be able to participate because I had my first daughter 5 days after my 15th birthday. And Dr. Sullivan never gave up on me. And he told me that I was going to participate, go to college, do everything that everybody else was able to do, even with my daughter. And so I use those techniques, because I really believe, and I say this in everything that I've done as an adult, that if it wasn't for Dr. Sullivan, I would not be here. I would still be like a lot of my peers, still living in that neighborhood, still living in Las Vegas,
and
maybe just having a hotel job. Yeah, and so he showed me something different. But I do the same thing. I go into fairly poor neighborhoods, and I put this event together so they don't have to go out, venture out. They're able to walk in if they need to. And those are where the most talent is at, in those neighborhoods, but people would never know because they're low income. So we're very sane. That's why I'm just smiling listening to him.
You know, Nicola, when I work with women suffering from domestic abuse, I often see myself in those women, given my own personal history. Yes. And then I feel that it helps me help them. Do you feel the same with the girls you help?
Yes, because when I come in, these girls don't know who I am. And I make sure I'm just very pretty. I'm dancing. I'm having a good time. But at the same time, they're intrigued because they're like, who is this person? And so after I'm dancing, taking pictures, once they introduce me and give all my accolades, then I turn around and tell them, I am just like you. I was raped, I was beaten, I had 2 children that passed away, and you can be better than me. And so with the girls, when you tell them this, then they're more open to tell you what they're going through. We have an anonymous panel session, and they put their questions in the bag, and we pull them. And the questions can be as simple as, how did you start your business, to, I am being raped by my uncle, how do I get help? Like, you never know what somebody is going through, and you being open and vulnerable, telling your story, how that would allow them to be open and tell what's going on with them in turn.
You're doing an amazing thing, Nicola. Really, it's really inspiring. And I want to ask you, Alec, what motivates you in your journey?
It's a good question. You know, in my last Olympic game in London, I lost after 43 seconds. And when I came to Israel, I started hearing the thing that I hear all the time, that Israel is not good at sport because of the Israeli mentality and because of the Jewish gene. And I hate when people say that. And I want to try to change it. We are one of the best nations in high tech, and we have one of the strongest army in the world. We have so many Nobel Prizes. And I think we can also be a good country in sport. that is what I'm trying to do. You know, I failed a little bit in sports because I really wanted to finish my career with Olympic gold medal. So I will try to do that through my nonprofit.
What is the one thing that you would like to tell, to deliver? What message you want to deliver to those young kids that are maybe struggling at home?
I think kids all over the world, first of all, needs to find what they're best at. It's the most important part, and then do their best in order to fulfill it. I have to tell you about a very special project that I'm running because David Harrison, who was here, is one of the biggest donors to that project. It's a long-distance running project directly to the Ethiopian community. It's a well-known fact that the Ethiopian community has a talent in athletic, in running, but it's not enough that you're Ethiopian. Someone has to scout you, someone has to train you. So I took two Olympic athletes, former Olympic athletes. I gave them the opportunity to scout the talented kids in two difficult neighborhoods in Netanya and Petah Tikva. They scouted 40 kids. 80% of them was Ethiopian. 2.5 years later, in the Israeli championship till the age of 12, all the podium was ours. Gold medal, silver medal, and bronze medal. So I think it's very easy. If you find a kid with a potential and you give them the right opportunity, he will fulfill his potential.
Nicola, I see you're listening and you're nodding. So I guess you agree with Arik.
Totally. We start going into pre-COVID, the detention centers. So these girls are 12 to 17, and some of them are certified as adults. They're going to prison. And you wonder, like, what got them there, right? And these are like small charges to things that are because of human trafficking. And those girls, though, I helped one baby get out. And when she got out, she has so much potential. She's so full of life. And it's just like, if she didn't meet me, and if I didn't help her get out, like, where would she be right now? And she is my inspiration. Every time it gets hard, and especially now that COVID is happening and we can't get to those children, you know, like, we tripled the numbers of attendees because we're doing it virtually. But the girls who I really need to be able to be part of it, they're not a part of it because they do not have access to internet, the devices. And those are the babies, like, what he just said, those are the children that will always shine the most, but I don't have the ability to get to them right now. So that's my biggest challenge.
Nicola, what is your vision? How do you see Girls Who Brunch maybe in the future?
Being from Jamaica, I want this to be an international event. I want to be able to have like a World Girls Who Brunch Tour day, that we're doing a major conference simultaneously throughout the world. I want us to be able to have graduate programs. My alumni, I still work with them and I bring them back in, but I want to be able to have more resources for them. I want to be able to help them more with their futures, their businesses. I want to have a couple of charter schools throughout the nation. There's a lot that I want to do. I'm also developing a human trafficking app right now for girls to be able to have access to. Okay, the biggest thing with human trafficking is they have all these resources for them to call, but if they call and there's not someone able to answer the phone, they're not able to tell you where they are or have someone call back. So I want an app to be able to track them. So these are the things I'm working on now for in the future.
Really inspiring. And I can already see and imagine how it's going to look, the international conference that you're going to make. So don't forget to invite me, Nicola. And Alec, I want to ask you the same question. What would you like to accomplish?
I want that the people in Israel will be proud in their athlete. I want to see the Israeli football team qualifying to the World Championship. I want to see many Israeli athletes winning gold medals in Olympic Games. I want to see kids from peripheral areas representing Israel in European, World, and Olympic Games. And it's possible. Israel is good at sports. I think I have to tell you one thing that I didn't know that. Jews are 0.5% of the population around the world. The how do we say it? 2.5% of the Olympic medals are gained by Jews. So there's nothing wrong with the Jewish gene, and I think Israel can gain 8 till 10 Olympic medals every Olympic Games. Right now we have barely 1 or 2. That is my vision, and it will take but 6 to 8 years till we'll accomplish that.
Alec, I know you. When you set a goal, you go and get it. So
not always, but thank you.
I'm looking forward to see all these medals.
Thank
I
you
want to
very
ask both of you, and we'll start with you, Nicola.
Okay.
Our viewers here, they all want to cultivate good, to spread good and kindness. And I want to ask you, how do we do that? As two people who do that on a daily basis, what do you think the best thing we should all know?
I believe that you need to find out what is your weakness. What is something that hurts you? What is something that is your Achilles heel? Believe it, that there are so many other people that feels like you. So that is what you need to motivate yourself into trying to create a better world with. And then on top of it, just do it. A lot of people try to wait till they get the funding, till they have the right information. I always just say, just do. What's supposed to happen will happen. What you're supposed to have will come. When I started Girls Who Brunch, I didn't have a budget. I didn't even have a name. I just knew that I wanted to do something for girls throughout the country. And look, we quadrupled the number. But I feel like I have so much passion to do this because this is something that it's me. When I see those girls, I see me. So if you find, just as Alex said, he wants to make more children Olympic medalists. That is something that was dear to him. So that's what motivates him. So I think if we find what motivates us, then we'll be able to give that to the world and fight even harder, because that's something that we want to do. You see yourself in them.
I love it. And I'm definitely going to use it. I have some ideas, Nicola. Maybe I'll speak to you later again. Thank you, Nicola, and I want to hear from you, Alec.
I have to agree with Nicola, because I think many people, after they fail, they start to feel sorry at themselves and start to find excuses. And I think that if they will learn how to use that burn that we feel right after we fail, it's the best motivation we can ever get. I think my biggest achievement in my judo career was right after I failed somewhere. Because,
that's so interesting.
Yeah, I think that is one of the best things in competitive sport. You learn how to use, how to deal with stress, how to deal with failure, and how to use that burn. And I think it's the most important thing for a kid.
Thank you so much. Yes, we will. Thank you so much, Alec. Thank you so much, Nicola.
Thank you, Nicola.
I've learned so much. You're really two inspiring people. Thank you so much for all the good that you do.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And to the next session, when discussing being good and leading change in the world, it is crucial we identify and empower the right agents to bring about values and action. We like to focus on the most likely actors to call for the lead and change, young people. But what role should youth play in demanding, creating, and participating in solutions that affect their health and well-being? And what is the importance of finding their own voice to drive a positive change in the world? Joining me to discuss this further are from the UAE, the CEO of the Emirates Foundation, Ahmed Talib Aishami. In India, founder of Design for Change, Kiran Birsam Titsathi. And here in the studio with me, the founder and CEO of Include, Special for All, and the founder of Crembo Wings, Youth Movement for Children and Youth with and without disabilities, Adi Al-Chuler. Hi, thank you all for joining us.
Hey.
The three of you are all very accomplished, and I'm sure our viewers understand only from your titles. But before we begin, I want to give the three of you the chance to introduce yourselves and your work. So let's start with you, Adi.
So, hey, so I'm very happy to see you. I feel that my journey kind of started when I was 11 and a half, and I started to
11 and a half, that's very young.
Yeah, when I was a little girl, and I started to volunteer in a nonprofit here in Israel, an NGO that helps people with disabilities, and I came there to be a personal tutor of a 3-year-old kid named Kisil, and he had cerebral palsy, and he couldn't walk and couldn't talk and physically couldn't do anything on his own. And I came there to be with him once a week for 1 hour. But when I first met Kfir, I kind of fell in love immediately, and every day I finished school and I just went to his house, and he and his family become like a second family to me, and all the love and support that I needed, I received from them. And also growing up next to Kfir kind of taught me that we all have disabilities. We all have wheelchairs. It's just that with Kfir, everybody can see it. And growing up next to him, I kind of saw that the biggest need is the need for social life, for friends. It's not another therapy. It's just to have fun, to be a child, like everyone. So when I was 16, I joined a leadership development program called Lean, and I decided I'm going to start a youth movement for children with and without disabilities, and it grew very, very fast. And today we operate, Cremo Wings operate, I left the organization a few years ago, 80 branches with more than 7,500 kids with and without special needs. And a few years ago, I left this youth movement to do it in schools, and I started the inclusive schools in Israel, and we opened 5 inclusive schools for the first time here in the country. And in September, we're opening 8 new inclusive schools.
That's amazing.
Also, we have 1 ultra-Orthodox inclusive schools and kindergarten and high school. And I want, I hope that in 5 years, every city will have inclusive campus. Because for me, it's about understanding that diversity is an asset, is not a burden. And seeing the diversity within every person, and so
this is still just wonderful. And Kiran, I would like to hear from you.
Yeah. Hi, thank you for having me, and hi Adi.
Thank you for being with us.
It's lovely to meet you again. Yes. Unlike I had no plans of changing the world or being a social entrepreneur. My whole world changed when I became a mother. And I think when I encountered an education system that starts rewarding compliance and being good and obedience over agency and voice, I just thought that this wasn't, the journey that children should be part of. So as a designer, I think I responded to the opportunity. And I said, here's an opportunity. Here's a way to intentionally make sure that every child graduates with what we call an I can mindset and not needing permission to make the world a better place. So I think when I started my school 20 years ago now, it became a lab to iterate design principles that could get children to unleash their agency, but always with empathy, with the heart. So when we started the design framework of feel, imagine, do, and share, it became a wonderful structure and a way for children to ensure that they don't need permission to make the world a better place. So in 2009, when I launched Design for Change, I saw this true for children across the world. So now children in over 60 countries are using the FITS framework to change the bad and make it good with the power of their ideas. So I think the one thing I have learned in the last 20 years that empowerment is an act of faith. It's an act of belief, and in making sure that that age, gender, and competency have nothing to do, with their voice. So I think for me that has been a humbling journey, and so I just can't wait to see every child graduate with this mindset. So that's really been the 20 years.
Thank you. I loved what you said. Empowerment is an act of faith. It's very interesting. And Ahmed, on a day celebrating goodness, I must acknowledge how wonderful it is to have a representative from the UAE following the recent normalization of ties. I actually had a chance to visit Dubai, and it is lovely. So it's good to see you here. And we would love to hear from you.
Likewise, it's my pleasure, and such inspiring stories, Adi and Kiran, and I'm glad to be here today. My story is almost the same when it comes to one aspect, the role of empowerment. It started when I was young, around 13 or 14, And I saw through volunteering that no matter how small your role is, no matter how young you are in terms of age, you can make a difference. Nobody can bring you down from that aspect. And no matter how ridiculous or crazy the idea might seem, if it's going to yield the impact, then you need to strive for it. I was blessed enough with the systems of educations that we have here and the platforms to further get guidance, mentorship, and coaching, and then ultimately be the youth ambassador of the UAE to the United Nations and connecting with youths worldwide to see that we have one thing in common. How can we empower young individuals to give more to their nations, to make the life of their citizens better, even if it's in the smallest manner, communities. And this is where I would say my journey started, ending up to where I am today in the Emirates Foundation, is that the power of giving, no matter how small is nothing to be taken for granted. Whether you're a young individual, whether you're an expert, whether you're a designer, sometimes just taking the first step and influencing, whether it's your direct circle, your community, then expanding to your nation, to your region. That's how we can pave the way forward for a better generation for the people to come. And again, I just want to emphasize, and I loved what Kieran and Andy said, is that the moment you empower and you make sure that you're empowered and you empower others, so you share whatever you have, that's when change is going to happen to the better.
That's just wonderful. Thank you so much, Ahmed. And I want to ask you, Adi, what are the key principles that teachers and educational systems should adapt in order to provide students with the tools to create change in their environment?
Well, that's a very big question.
I know you have all the answers. I know you're ready.
Of course, anything. Well, I don't know if there is like a protocol or one manual of, how you do it, or one size to fit every education system. And in general, I mean, not to offend you or anybody, but I'm kind of tired of those big questions. So for me, it's like it's about hard work. It's about understanding the need and trying on a daily basis to create systems and communities that will fight and will do everything to change it, and communities of kindness that will fight about the right of everybody to be part of them, to have this feeling of belonging, to see the excellency, understanding the diversity, and really kind of pushing for agency and independency, like Kiran said. And in the inclusive schools, we work on those like core 4 values in 4 levels: on the pedagogical level, on the social emotional level, on the organizational level, and on the physical level. Like the design is a big part of the way we think about education in the inclusive schools. So we do try to work holistically, because I think everything is connected, and everything is like, there is a lot of dependencies. So when we're thinking about a change, we need to think like 360, 24/7, from like holistic perspective, and to make sure that whenever even if it's a school or like a principal or a teacher or a small municipality, you need to find the people that are passionate about these changes, and just to give them the tools and the
find
support.
people like you.
I'm finding people like them, but yeah.
Kiran, the same question to you. Kiran?
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes. I totally agree with Adi. I don't think there's a magic formula for doing this, but I think I have learned one thing, that, children, whilst they might not listen to you, they will always imitate you. So one of the great ingredients of this idea of empowerment is role modeling. So be worthy of being mimicked, be worthy of being in front of a child and have the child imitate acts of kindness and acts of generosity and acts of empowerment. I think it starts there. So, and I love using the word contagion. I keep saying that, contagion is a good word. And so just like you have a cold and somebody will get a cold. Yeah, so contagion is a super word. So be worthy of that. It's one act of faith. There's just one act of faith that can start the magic. And I have seen that when an adult tells a child you can, then they will. It's really as simple as that. And exactly like Adi says, you have to land up every single day to be worthy of that trust that a child puts in you. They're looking at you and saying, do I matter? Do I have a voice? Will I shape the world? And all it requires is somebody to say, yes, you will. And I'm there for you. I'm going to be a champion. So I think that's a very powerful insight that I have, a lesson that they have taught me, actually, in all these years.
Thank you, Kiran. And Ahmed, I want to ask you, what opportunities did this period in education open up for you?
I would say it opens up a very great opportunities first to pass on the values of what we want the next generation to act on. I know that there are many cultural norms. There are many, I would say, lessons that goes towards the child's upbringing, and the education system is where it starts. If we can ensure that we have values that are universal, whether it's inclusivity, as Adi said, kindness, the act of giving, as they're brought up, saying, building up on what Kiran said, if you provide role modeling for them, if you provide the platforms for them through either volunteering or taking them to ground to experience these acts of kindness, this is where it starts. Sometimes it's not as easy to preach or instill values in young individuals unless they practice it. It's a way of life. And in this global world, we need these values, especially in terms of inclusivity. How do we respect, other faiths, other nationalities, other perspectives? If we're brought up, with this notion, and we do pass it on to the next generation, imagine where the world will be a few years from now. Again, volunteering. I always say that volunteering and education should marry each other in a way or another. You are taught these concepts of being kind to another, giving back to another, but can we provide a platform within our education systems for them to practice it? And with that, I think this is something that we all as individuals or even, the people that want to develop and see change should either preach or try to apply even in the smallest way within our communities or within our nations.
Ahmed, and if you were the education minister for a day in charge of the entire education system in your country, what would be your first decision?
I would say number one is to develop further on a very nice curriculum that we have, which is called the moral education curriculum. Maybe replace most of the STEM periods with value-driven and storytelling classes just for one day. Because the power of telling a story, the power of being inspired, as Kiran said, and getting role models, to just share their experiences might actually change people's lives, even if it's for one day. Again, I'm a huge believer in STEM and all these the classrooms that they bring forward. But sometimes we just need to take a step back and enjoy what matters. Feel that beyond education, there's another element that is these value-driven notion of things that can help with our daily lives and our careers and also with our connections to the world.
Thank you, Ahmed. And Adi, we have elections here in Israel in less than 2 weeks, so maybe you still have time. Maybe you can be the next education minister.
But by the way, just to add to Ahmed, I think another opportunity that this period of time brought to us is this panel. It's what's going on exactly right at this moment, where, you know, educators who are leading different changes in their communities, from India to the Emirates to Israel, are here together to share knowledge, to share experience, best practices, and, you know.
Hopefully next time in person. But I do want to ask you, what would you do? What would be your first decision as an education minister?
To close the Ministry of Education.
Love it.
So I think in Israel, what's killing us is the bureaucracy. It's taking all the power from our principals, the one that should lead the change, from the municipalities. So hopefully to kind of shrink, to narrow the bureaucracy, the hierarchies in a way that will make it more flat, so the principals, educators will have the power. They live, you know, their schools, their systems, so to give them the power to lead the way they see things. So I think that would be the first.
Thank you, Adi. And Kiran, due to COVID-19, children all over the world missed a lot. And by that, I don't mean only the educational curriculum, but also the personal growth that comes with spending time with others, with other human beings. As educators, what long-term impacts do you think this may have?
Well, you know, I think there has been a misguided focus on the learning loss, which I think really doesn't matter too much. I think just imagine the year our children have witnessed. They've been told that to love somebody is to be afraid, stay away, you know, have a distance. So the amount of fear, I believe, would be our greatest reason to come back and bring courage back. I think our children need to love again. They need to feel safe again. They need to believe that, you know, that it matters to be with each other. So I feel that the loss of learning is totally secondary to the act of fear that needs to convert into courage. For me, that would be, the greatest gap that has happened, and that the greatest urgency for us is to bring courage back into our children so that they feel safe again. Then that's really when they will be able to learn again. So for me, that's something that matters.
That's so important. And Ahmed, I want to ask you the same questions. What are your thoughts about that?
I want to say something. Again, with this disruption, a lot of new opportunities emerged. And one is what's happening here, as Adi said. You are now connected with everyone on the globe. These systems were always there, but we haven't really used it to its full potential as much as we are doing now during this pandemic. How about we always keep this with connectivity, with again, like, it's always great to meet people in person, but when boundaries and long hours is the barrier, then this is a platform that we can always go back to, share our insights, connect even with different segments, you know, in society, whether it's the children, whether it's the youth, whether it's the policymakers, whether it's the these platforms allow us to connect more than ever. It's just about how we organize them and how we capitalize them. We always heard about cross-cultural programs and their benefits. Imagine now being able to do it virtually with as much people as you can, not worrying about logistics and all the operations that come with organizing such programs. Maybe just monthly syncs with people that are that think the same, that believe in a cause. Like we are here today because of what COVID allowed us, you know, to do, because of us adapting to new ways of interacting. And I think this is something we should keep on developing. If we talked about this 2 years back, nobody would have thought, why would I attend a virtual forum? Why would I, you know, be on a panel and discuss this with people that are not next to me physically? But now we've seen how well it works. And I think it's our role to increase the amount of syncs and panels and ways to collaborate and share our different cultures and insight throughout such means.
Mm-hmm. Before our last question, I just want to note that whether in the UAE, in India, or in Israel, I know that I want my children to learn from educators like the three of you. And I would like to ask all of you to maybe share with us maybe one example from your experiences, one child who left you with an unforgettable memory, Adi.
One child?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, wow.
It's hard. Okay,
wow,
you want to choose
hard.
one group, one school? Just this one story.
Maybe, Kiran, maybe you will start. I need a minute. I don't have it like one child.
Yeah.
When you talked about Kfir, so we know the story of Kfir.
I have so many.
It's like a mother when you tell her to choose one of her children.
Wow.
I know. It's really hard.
So many. Maybe I will think about it a second.
Yeah, so we'll start with Kiran.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, exactly like Adi. There are just so many. But for me, I think my journey just started with my own son. So I think the greatest lesson was his being with me and making me the parent I am, making me brave, making me courageous, making me shameless. So I think I owe it to the act of becoming a mother to start this journey of being a champion of children. So I feel he was a trigger point. He was the catalyst. And subsequently, my awakening to children across and their capacity and potential came because of my son who showed me what it means. So I think I'm grateful that he brought out in me my purpose.
And I know that an educator like you make sure that he knows that he made you do all these wonderful things in the world. But I can really refer to that. Our kids, our children are really, they push us to do good things. And Ahmed, I would love to hear one story from you, from your side.
I won't refer to a specific child, but about a group of them. Mm-hmm. So in 2019, Abu Dhabi hosted the Special Olympics World Games. And in the UAE, we call people, with any kind of disability, people of determination. Mm. We had one session which was Meet the Determined. Young children that all are beautiful in their own way, and have this perseverance to continue to give more, whether it's on the educational front, whether it's on the athletic front. And it just shocked me. I have a sister from the people of determination, and she passed away a few years back. But seeing that how they continue to stand up no matter how hard it is something very inspiring. So I remember during the site visit to the school, I just left being another person, saying that what is my excuse, not to get up when things get tough? What's my excuse to not continue to push forward on any initiative or project, regardless of how hard it is? If they are such an inspiration and they do it on a daily basis, we might do it on occasion, but they do it on a daily basis.
I think, Ahmed, I'm going to remember that story. Every morning when I wake up, I'm going to remind myself this motivational story. And Adi, I'm getting back to you.
For me it was Kfir, actually. Yeah, I mean, Kfir, he passed away 14 years ago when he was 11 and a half. And until today, he's my biggest inspiration. A kid that never said one word that wouldn't be able to walk or talk, or he kind of taught me also, first of all, to accept my own disabilities, and second, to follow my heart. And I feel that because of him, so many kids and so many teenagers all around this country have friends and a place and meaning in this world. And so for me, it will be Kfir.
Adi, thank you so much. Such a beautiful story. And thank you, Kiran. Thank you, Ahmed. This was really wonderful. Let's turn to the world of business now, but not to discuss the stock market or quarterly growth, and rather focus on how businesses can help others grow. We would like to examine how businesses identify their core values and what actions they take to live up to those values and reflect them throughout their communities. To answer these questions, we turn now to two men who know a few things about business and about cultivating good. It's my pleasure to introduce impact investor and philanthropist David Arison, who will lead this conversation with Justin Rockefeller, head of impact at Adipar, who is joining us from New York. Thank you, gentlemen, for being here today. David, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Good morning, Justin. How are you doing?
Very well. Nice to see you.
Nice to see you too. I hope you're staying safe and healthy over there.
Safe and healthy so far. It is, it's a pretty sad situation globally. Obviously, New York, where I live, was hit especially hard. But fingers crossed, things are looking positive in terms of vaccination progress, et cetera. So we're counting our blessings.
Happy to see you're doing well. So we're here to talk a little bit about doing good in business, how we implement values in business. And I thought of no one better than you. I mean, you've been leading some amazing initiatives, whether it's co-founding and being chairman of the Impact and the work that you're doing at Adipar and your tenure at the Rockefeller Brothers Fund. Just eager to hear some of the things that drive you. Why do you care actually about values in business and that you actually have a positive impact on society and the surroundings that you work in?
Well, thank you for thinking of me about this. It is a topic that I do care about. It's, for me, I think about my roots. And I was born as lucky as someone can be born, essentially. My family, the Rockefeller family, has had outsized achievements in both capitalism and philanthropy. And the more I learned about those outsized achievements, the more I thought, how could I possibly live up to this? How could I possibly fill these shoes? There's no way I'm going to meet these types of expectations. But I was also learning about family values and family traditions. And it occurred to me that, there's a new twist on both capitalism and philanthropy called values-aligned investing or impact investing or sustainable finance. There's still lots of terms about this. But it's a chance to build on some of those family legacies in capitalism and philanthropy with a new twist, and one that I think is really important for millennia to come, which is that if we are going to stick to this model of capitalism that we have, it has to be more sustainable than it has been to date. My great-great-grandfather was an amazing businessman. He started Standard Oil, and he had not heard of climate change. He didn't know that would be a problem. But the basic model that he took, which was making a lot of money, always giving away 10% of it. So he tithed throughout his entire life. He actually bought a slave's freedom before the Civil War. It's just that as his wealth grew, that 10% also grew. And then the second half of his life became the primary focus for him, was giving away the fortune that he had amassed. Instead, I think there's a new, more compelling model, which is that the process of making money should also have measurable social and environmental impacts. And it can. And you and I are working on some of those projects together.
Yeah, that's incredible and very interesting. There's so many similarities when we got to know each other. I've seen so many similarities between history of the family and coming from operating business and how it trickles down within the generations and the type of things that we're working on, caring about. Over here at Eran Group, at the Eran Investments, we've always had a very strong focus on making an impact with the companies that we own and we have control over. And we always tried to lead through a vision and be values driven, and really tried to make an impact within those surroundings, till we came to a point where I actually figured out that our family methodology is around doing good in business, and we've created a specific lens that we work with. Everything that we invest in and all the strategies that we take a holistic approach through the eyes of the Doing Good model. The Doing Good model is a model that we built internally over the years. And it's just so interesting to know my history, to get to know your history and how we connect together. And I think that a lot of these ways is also what persuade me to join the Impact a few years ago. You're the chairman of this organization, the Impact. Can you share a little bit about what it's sought out to do, and share with the audience the same reason that I decided to join?
Let me put words in your mouth, David, and explain why you would want to join the Impact. No, so I'm happy to give an organizational overview. I might just say one word first, which is about the Doing Good model. It is so comprehensive and thoughtful. And my goal in life, let me rephrase that. I will feel good on my deathbed if I feel that I've left a legacy of impact, but also did so thoughtfully, that I led and examined life. And there are, studying the Doing Good model and the various components of it and how everything fits well together, it makes me reflect upon the interconnectedness of the world, right? That ecology and economy are very connected, for example. Obviously, people are more connected than ever through technology. So the idea behind the Impact is essentially to act upon that. It is a group of people who want to align their values and their investments. These are families who traditionally have been philanthropic in their communities. We have 75 plus member families all over the world, so it's a global organization. And these families, who are often business leaders and philanthropy leaders, say, we want to go further, and we want to reflect some of what we've learned in business and philanthropy in our investment portfolio. And we don't want to reinvent that wheel. We want to learn from other families. And families are very cooperative with one another. And they don't want to make the same mistakes that others have made. They don't want to, again, reinvent the wheel. And there are families who are happy to share best practices and be open about their mistakes. So that's the premise of the Impact, the network of sharing and doing. So we've spent several years building trust among these families, getting together, trading notes, and the exciting development of the last few years has been watching some of the initiatives that have come out of the membership. We have a new twist on the venture capital model that I think is going to potentially change the way finance is done. We have an initiative around banking that is going to, in some, put pressure on some banks to be more responsible about climate change, where these families, are clients, and many other exciting initiatives, all member-led. So it's been very fun to have, this organization be a safe space for some of these families to trade notes with each other and then work together. Yeah,
you see, for me, when I joined the Impact, I always knew that a business should be used as a force for good, serving the community, employing the community, sourcing locally, and really providing that bridge to gap of necessity and well-being within people's lives and within the environment. And growing up, I always thought that I was somewhat we were kind of isolated within our family, and more we got to know you, we got to know the group of families, and we understood more and more that we are not the only ones that understand that you can solve problems, you can bring best practices that benefit people's lives and the environment, and make money doing so. I think it's really important to understand that the perception of business is one that you can have impact alongside revenue. And we've discovered this more and more along our journey within the members of, through the members of the Impact and everything that everyone's doing. But I think, stories and slogans aside, maybe it could be interesting to share one specific way that we were able to leverage some of these ideas and go beyond a network talking about and actually doing stuff together. I don't know how much you want to share, but I remember back in the days where we were just getting to know each other, you knew that I was interested in water. And water is a theme that I'm very passionate about. And you introduced me to a company that seemed very interesting with very advanced technology. And I was coming from a background of bulk water and water infrastructure. And I had to go through a full mind shift of what I was discovering from this company that you introduced, Source Global. Can you briefly share, just to show some of our viewers what it actually means to build a business, to invest in a business that is a force for good within the core business, within the business model, within its pure nature?
This is a perfect example of a business where the more money it makes, the more positive impact it's going to have. Those are linearly correlated. And it's worth giving a very brief overview of what the company actually does. So everyone listening probably knows what a solar panel is. Not many people might know what a hydro panel is. So think of a solar panel with a little bit of extra weight on the bottom, a little miniature refrigerator on the bottom, so to speak. And rather than creating electricity, this solar panel actually powers a fan and brings in humidity from above the solar panel into the device. And then there's a process of adsorption. Think of a dehumidifier for the sky. So you end up with perfectly pure, both filtered and mineralized drinking water without any infrastructure. So this can pump the water right into your kitchen. You can put together a large array of these devices and, for example, relieve the water problems for Flint, Michigan. You remember they had
the lead issues in the pipes?
Exactly. So the company can now sell water as a service, and people can independently own their own unlimited drinking supply of water. So you're seeing this pop up in villages and schools around the world, and it really repurposes people's time. So unfortunately, it's mostly women and children who are tasked with sometimes, walking kilometers a day to go fetch drinking water because it's necessary. And 1 out of every 3 people in the world do not have reliable access to clean, potable drinking water. So this is a major problem. It's an enormous market, hundreds of billions of dollars and growing, and a very dedicated, impressive scientist, entrepreneur. Again, the better it does financially, the more measurable, positive environmental and social impact this company is having.
It's incredible. I mean, taking basically sunlight and air and generating that into water. And one of the things that I loved is that it's 100% grid-free, right? I mean, you don't have to connect it to any source of electricity. As you said, it produces its own electricity, and you just could literally, I mean, they developed these in Scottsdale, Arizona, so they literally can take it in the desert, put it anywhere, and start producing drinking water. And the scalability and the models that you can achieve in terms of engaging indigenous communities that never had access to clean drinking water. And this is actually an amazing example of how, as you said, the more money the company will make, the better people are going to be off for it. It's an incredible solution, and I'm honored to be a part of this type of thing. One of the first things that you told me when we first met, and it's kind of like an ethos of the impact, is that we actually participate in the things that we invest in. So if we invest in things that have negative impact on people's lives, even if it's a very small and passive investment, we are partaking in that activity. And I'd like to thank you for bringing these things to my attention. And I think I have been benefited gratefully in my understanding of how we can use business as a force for good. After you have recruited me to the impact, and I got to know and learn so many things. It's time for, they're telling me in the ear that's time for us to finish off. I would wonder one thing, if you would have a wish that the audience could take home from these discussions, or the things that we would hope to implement within our lifespan, what would it be?
I'll mention two things. One, how we earn money, how we donate money, how we spend money, and how we invest money all have moral consequences. So to the extent that you can reflect on each of those, you're actually more likely to change your behavior across the board with all of them. Because the things that we do, even when we invest, that investment is going to have both positive and negative consequences. So just reflecting on those is helpful, and it makes it more likely that you're going to change someone else's behavior. The last thing I'll mention is I would encourage listeners to embrace your frustration. To the extent that something bothers you, it's easy to shrug your shoulders and say, you know, life is complicated. It probably is the way that it is. But if you start asking questions and you start talking to people in that field, then odds are there's something you can do to help. So I wouldn't just ignore your frustration. I would reflect on why you're feeling frustrated, and then see if you can do something about it, because everyone can be a change maker.
That's pure words of wisdom. Thank you so much, Justin. It's time for us to wrap up. Thank you everyone for joining. Thank you for having us, and a special, very special thank you, Justin Rockefeller. Thank you for joining us.
Be well.
Thank you, Justin Rockefeller and David Arison, for such a fascinating conversation. Which brings us to the end of the second plenary of the Goodstock Conference and opens our next series of breakout sessions. So please enjoy our virtual platform with more great conversations, a global exhibition, and network opportunities. And we will meet back here with our third and final plenary.